Welcome to CPI's webinar, Positive Connections, CPI and Positive Behavior Support. We're going to go ahead and get started right away. My name is Susan Keith, and I am a professional staff instructor and a content developer here at CPI. I've worked with CPI for nearly 15 years. Prior to working with CPI, I also worked in school systems and residential care facilities with individuals with developmental disabilities. I'm participating today from CPI headquarters in Brookfield, Wisconsin. And I'm very happy to be co-presenting our webinar today with our very special guest, Richard Boltax, who is actually joining us from the state of Vermont through the miracle of technology. Richard is an educational consultant with the Vermont Department of Education. He's also the co-coordinator of the BEST initiative. Richard's expertise includes helping schools to develop school-wide discipline plans. He also provides training and technical assistance to help schools throughout Vermont build their capacity to include students with emotional and behavioral challenges. He also happens to be a master level certified instructor of the Nonviolent Crisis Intervention program. Whether you've participated in a CPI webinar in the past or are joining us for the very first time, we hope that you find the information presented here today, the ideas in the discussion, to be informative, to be useful, and thought-provoking. We want to take time also for questions both during and at the end of our webinar, and we want to share with you ways that you can continue to share your thoughts and expertise afterwards. We really intend for this to be just a beginning of sharing of best practice in the field. So we do encourage you to share the information presented here today with colleagues that may not have been able to attend with you. Please feel free to share this information. But before we go on, I did want to ask you about the questions on the opening slide. I'm guessing most of you were able to think of at least one individual that you support who displays challenging behavior. Please note that the questions asked you if you noticed behavior change in the persons displaying challenging behavior, and we also asked you to notice anything about the behaviors of the others present, including staff members. Our focus generally tends to be on observing and intervening with the person who is challenging or behaving inappropriately. However, it's equally important to focus on our own behaviors and how these can affect the outcome of a crisis. Absent solid training in supporting positive behaviors and effective crisis intervention, when staff do not have the skills necessary to intervene when behaviors do become challenging, we may find ourselves at a loss for what to do when those behaviors escalate. So we're together today to really talk about what we can do collectively to support staff skills to increase your ability to de-escalate behaviors to support positive behaviors. And so, as many of you do know, the Nonviolent Crisis Intervention Training Program provides a framework for decision-making during a crisis situation at all levels. And, for example, the crisis development model, the verbal escalation continuum, and the coping model, which are really core models in the program, help staff to organize their thinking around challenging behaviors, as well as appropriate staff responses. The Nonviolent Crisis Intervention Training Program also places a great focus on how a staff person's behavior can have a strong influence on whether a crisis escalates or de-escalates. This is a concept that we call integrated experience. So both frameworks, both nonviolent crisis intervention and positive behavior supports, are rooted in person-centered, supportive approaches that can be integrated to create a holistic approach for behavior management. Both frameworks are complementary. Both provide staff with necessary tools and skills to support all the individuals in your care. In addition to those underlying philosophies, the real purpose behind nonviolent crisis intervention is to provide for the best care, welfare, safety, and security for all individuals, even during the most challenging behaviors or crisis moments that you may need to support individuals through. And I would venture to say that this is a philosophy that is also reflected in and complementary to the framework of positive behavior support as well. So, speaking of positive behavior supports, I'd like to have Richard come on now for a moment, talk a little bit more about the BEST program and the successes Vermont has had at integrating various frameworks towards supporting the children in the state of Vermont. Richard?
Well, thank you, Susan, and greetings to all of you out there in the technology lounge. As Susan said earlier, Vermont has a long history with this project called BEST. It started about 15 years ago when parents and educators came to our legislature demanding some type of response from the Department of Education and from school districts in general regarding challenging behavior of students. They were concerned about the students that were showing these challenging behaviors. They were concerned about the effect of those challenging behaviors on school climate in general and on the academic achievement of everyone. So we began a project that has evolved over the years, and I'll be telling you a little bit about it. It essentially started with a notion of looking at where schools were in Vermont and helping them to build the capacity to serve kids with challenging behavior. Now, previously, a lot of that type of work was associated with special education or with kids with other types of disabilities. And we made it clear from the onset that this would be an initiative aimed at all students and with various needs around their social emotional issues. So we started this project, and we first looked within Vermont and identified those folks that were doing the cutting edge work and put them to work in terms of helping us build approaches and create strategies to support schools. And then we went beyond our borders and looked nationally at the best practices around the country at that time. And as you can see from the bullets, we identified a number of approaches, each one somewhat different, but all of them in context of working together create a very, very powerful way of creating safe school climates. So you see Nonviolent Crisis Intervention, or NCI, at the top of the list. That was one of the first partnerships that we established. We needed a very effective training mechanism for all staff, not just special educators or para-educators that are working with kids with challenging behavior, but for all staff to be able to deal with the day-to-day kinds of issues around kids who come in a little bit anxious and may exhibit some behaviors that need to be addressed that may detract from learning, to students that act out to a greater capacity, require limit setting, and even forming school-wide plans around responding to emergencies. And over the years, we built on the original ideas of BEST with NCI and seeded it with the other things that you see in the bullets in front of you. There are even other strategies for bullying. We've used the Olveus bullying approach strategy. And the point is that I guess, relatively speaking, because Vermont is such a small state, you can almost think of us as a very large school district. And we had a way to coordinate all these efforts in a way that I know would be quite difficult in a lot of places, in a lot of the school districts in which many of you are sitting right now. But what we know is that when you put these things together, there is a gestalt, so to speak, that really provides supportive environments for faculty and for students, and gives parents the confidence that their schools are really safe places and places where learning is going to happen. And really, that's what it's all about.
So what we're going to try to do today is integrate the skills and the strategies of nonviolent crisis intervention training into the structure of positive behavior support. What we hopefully see at that collaboration is that staff and client change is much more likely to occur. So it's about skill building for staff so that we can understand the appropriate responses to the behaviors that we encounter. We also want to look at how to demonstrate how those valued ideas and practices of nonviolent crisis intervention fit into that structure, to discuss also how to assess or track or even evaluate the impact of nonviolent crisis intervention training within a school that uses positive behavior supports. And I'd like to add, I'd also want to begin a dialogue today and open discussion to share success stories that you all have experienced, but also to have you share the challenges that you face in integrating both of these frameworks, and ask you to share those ideas with each other and with us so that we can help support you in implementing both frameworks as effectively as possible.